this is Mike Byrnes with another episode of Business Bests. I am going into the archives of one of my articles that I wrote a long time ago about how leaders rise above the rest. A little bit of overlap in some of the recordings I've already done, but some other new ideas. I really think that part of my consulting role sometimes is to help people be more successful. And they have to be a better leader in a lot of cases, whether they just don't have a natural ability at it or whether they just get bogged down with too much stuff. Sometimes they get away from what makes them successful. And so I just came up with 15 things in this article, and I'll add some more content to it as I go. But reality, number one, it kind of goes with some of the videos I've already recorded, is having a mission. If you can get everybody on board with what you're trying to accomplish as a leader, that is such a win. You think about George Washington or other great leaders, right? Like they didn't just, have no strategy and have nobody else that wanted to agree with what they're trying to do. They actually got other people within the military to buy in, other political people, et cetera, and that Revolutionary War ended up being a success. A great whole case study on leadership and how the United States was created over time. But back to your business, how can you actually get people on board? How can you tie them in to see what you see? What's your vision? What do you want to accomplish? Why are you doing what you're doing day in and day out? That stuff matters, right? And so as a leader, if you can communicate that, one, have it really well planned out, well articulated, being able to remember it and be able to remind people and build on it and always use it as a foundation. It's part of being a great leader. So not just a mission statement, but the kind of the whole vision and where your organization is going to go. That's super, super important. Number two is have a plan. You're probably sick of me in videos saying that you have to have a plan. I'm a consultant, I'm sorry. But like having a designation and knowing where you want to go. I mean, obviously, you're first in line, you're trying to go to where you want to go, and that's what leadership's all about. People follow you, right? So that plan is how you're going to get there, and what does that look like? How are you going to make your people, whatever that looks like, follow you? And so for them to kind of have that shared, not just a vision statement, but to have a shared belief of what you're trying to accomplish and where you're trying to go, that's going to get them all behind you, and they'll follow you because of it. That sometimes takes a little bit of interaction, but other times it can just be communicated down and trickle down to everybody. So it's really up to you of how you would figure that out. I did all kinds of videos on planning, so I don't want to spend too much time on that, but there's a whole process to that, and actually bringing people in allows them to feel like they have some ownership in their organization. So please make that something that isn't just like a dictatorship and forced on everybody. Think about good leaders, they're usually not dictators, right? The dictators have something over their citizens that they control them. A real good leader in a business is the opposite of that, right? Like maybe there is some control because you could fire them, I guess, or change their compensation. But a good leader, there are other ways to get the best out of people, and we'll talk about that more as I go through. A trait that I think is important in good leadership is to stay the path. I oftentimes see some people, they're just kind of scatterbrainy, and that's probably a bad way to describe them, but man, they ping back and forth. And imagine every time you sat in a boardroom and you had your leadership meeting, you talked about a new thing and a new priority, and your path is just never moving forward, right? Like you have to have a little bit of a longer term vision, and you have to get there before you can ping around. That's not to say you're so rigid that you can not have a little bit of flexibility in the direction that you go, but you can't just fly by the seats of your pants. Those people are never looked at as the best leaders. Being very cautious to say, it's not to say that you can't have something come up where a good leader recognizes it's an opportunity or threat and they pivot, but the person that is really good has something that they beat the drum and they keep making progress in the certain direction, and everybody sees it and they're going to want to follow them. So stay the path. That's number 3 in how to be a good leader. Number 4 in how to be good at what you do if you're a leader is communication. Honestly, people that over communicate, I think, oftentimes are better than the ones that under communicate. So obviously, you try to find the right the right amount of communication. But that takes time, right? And good leaders, they need to sometimes get out of the weeds and focus on areas that are going to make them more successful. Communication is one that almost always, as a consultant, when I look under the hood and somebody's not really being a great leader, is because they're not communicating with their followers, right? Like their associates or employees. And so how could they do a better job of that? Sometimes that means communicating things that aren't that great, right? And so I think that is part of the role as a leader. You can't always just communicate things that are always, rainbows and unicorns. And there are times where you go through a bumpy ride, and hopefully that's not a long-term thing. But if you can communicate with them better. So that starts with one-on-one communications. Do people feel comfortable talking with you? Do you have an open door policy? That can be dangerous, like having people always in your office. You can't get much done. But what does it look like? How could they schedule? How could they get accessibility? How can you make time in your calendar to be proactive and go drop in on other people? And do those junior people have an open door policy? What does it look like? What's the right mix right there? That's kind of your one-on-one communications. Let's say you start to get in a boardroom. How effective are you with your PowerPoint presentations, emails that you send out, and so on? Can somebody scan it really easily on a PowerPoint presentation? Is it really boring as death by PowerPoint? Are you passionate? We'll talk about some of those other things and how to present and do that later on. But how can you get the message across? And what's the frequency? How often do you just disappear and hope that everyone is in sync versus how often do you just proactively communicate all the time? Like if your people had to read your email every single day, maybe that makes them less productive, right? So what's the balance there? So being able to be a better business writer, for example, can help when you do have to communicate to people. But even something like text messages, and there's ways to drip on people and keep them moving in the right direction, kind of building on the other leadership things I've already talked about, that communication can be really helpful for. Number 5 for leadership is to have great measures. We talked just a minute ago about like having a path and knowing that you want to have everybody go a certain direction. Measures just track that you're going in the right direction. There are too many people that do not use analysis as part of the success of who they are. There are kind of different personalities, and maybe do some self-evaluation of who you are. Some leaders are just like the most passionate people and totally, I'm being a little stereotypical, but like that person that would be at a party and everyone would be around them. And then other leaders are the quiet person that you would never expect to be a leader, but is so analytical and can make the best decisions on data, et cetera. So you need a balance of that, right? So I did talk about communication. That's where maybe an internal person might not be as great at that. They can, over time, be better at it. But that introvert might be better at the analysis. Be careful not to do analysis by paralysis or like always just be having meetings with subordinate people and always just going right into the numbers. There's a whole nother human element to leadership. So analysis is really important. Having the measures, making sure you're sticking to the plan, make sure you reward people if they're doing the right things. Figure out if you're not making your numbers or your goals and those measures are suffering, what's the next step? How do you evolve and where do you go from there? But measurement is really, really important as part of being a good leader. Number 6 is to be an influencer. What do you have that would make you influence people? Again, we talked about personality. That could be part of it. But maybe it's your experience. Maybe it's the way you carry yourself, your tone. There are all different types of things that can be factored into how you influence somebody. Don't make it just because you have power, like just because you're at the top and can control certain things. Don't make that why you influence people. Try to find to the softer side of that, the more human element side of that, and tap into being an influencer. And actually, people will follow you if you have that type of role, right? And so I would encourage you to think about all the interactions you already have with people that might roll up underneath you, and just evaluate yourself. Do you influence them in a positive way or a negative way? And what could you do to improve in that category? I guarantee like everybody could do a little bit better, and I'm going to give a whole bunch of things a way to be leaders. Everyone can be a little bit better in each one of these categories. So as I go through them, just try to pause and think, this one's on being an influencer. What could I do to be more influential? Number 7 is lead by example. Such a wonderful thing. You don't always have to use words to be a good leader. I did talk about how important communication is, but sometimes people just see your behavior, your routine, how you carry yourself, and that's enough for them to follow. An example might be, I love to use baseball as an example, but any sport, the quietest person might go out and dominate on the field, or whatever sport it might be, and other people will just naturally follow that person because they have demonstrated that they know what to do to create a win, right? So now going back to a business, how can you be that person that influences them? You don't always have to be the first one in the office and the last one at the office, but if you are, guess what? That might influence the people to want to work a little bit harder. Maybe you are really considerate and you know that someone's going through a struggle and you write a handwritten note, or you just spend time in the office doing the right things, and you stay on the up and up, and you're always kind of dedicated to the business. All those types of things are observations that people can make, and they'll be very likely to follow you. If they kind of see you're doing the right things, then guess what? They're going to want to do them too. If you're not a leader by example, I have worked with clients where the leader's never in the office. Like literally has made so much money, they just kind of have the business as a hobby, right? And so how could that person really be influential? I mean, obviously they've made money and they're successful, so they have some influence. People are going to want to be like them, so to speak. But if you're not kind of in the trenches and doing what the other people are doing, you get disconnected, right? So there are all kinds of ways to be a leader by example. I would encourage you to think about what are those, like in your office or your setting, what do those look like, and how could people want to emulate you and be more like you? Number 8 in how to be a better leader is to be a problem solver. Literally, if you can see some hurdles and come up with a solution for it, people are going to want to come to you, right? And they will realize that you have something that not everybody has, right? To have this creative way to advance beyond those things that always come up. Life gives us hurdles all the time, right? Throws us curveballs. What, as a leader, can you do to assess in a situation, think about it rationally, know what the emotions are, don't just forget about them, evaluate everything, and come up with a nice way to have a decision. And actually then we talked about communication, how to communicate it, how to explain it, all that type of stuff. Being a problem solver is amazing. That is something that every business needs because problems are going to arise all the time. There are times where people need to think things through, and there's times where they can make an instant decision. I will caution you that some people will always fly by the seat of their pants and make a quick decision. That's not always the right mentality. Sometimes there is some thought process that needs to go into something. You need to weigh decisions. You need to get other inputs. Sometimes you're not aware of everything that's factoring into the decision that you need to make, so you need to let other things bubble up to the surface, or again, do more research. So being a creative problem solver is a complete home run if you want to be a better leader. So think about how can you be better at it? I mean, part of it is just an art, right? And you're good at it. I think some people are blessed with common sense and other people aren't. But as a consultant, probably why I'm a consultant, because I like to kind of deal with problems and I try to find ways to make them better. Some people don't want to be in those situations. They don't want to have the pressure decision, and they don't want to make mistakes. I mean, honestly, to be a problem solver, sometimes you're going to make a mistake. You're not going to always solve the problem. So if you had a whole lifespan of making decisions and trying to solve problems, you've probably created your own just natural ability to figure out how to make the right decision and move forward. And then, some people, when they're problem solvers, they don't stick with their own decision. I talked about that earlier, like hold the path or have a path and stick with it. You have to have some belief in your decision that you made the right decision, because there will be a lot of naysayers sometimes when you come up with a decision to solve a problem, and they're all going to be questioning you and deciding whether you made the right decision or not. I think that you kind of have to have faith in who you are and what you're doing, and let things play out over time. So to be a problem solver is to be not just in the moment, but to have more of a longer term focus, and to have some belief in yourself that all your experience and all the inputs that came in and all the common sense and all the maybe intelligence that you have will help you come up with the right decision. Number 9 is to love work and radiate it. There are people that you just want to be around, and they are very passionate about what they do. The person that can't stand being at work, do you want to be around them? No, and they're not going to be good leaders, right? If you have somebody that is junior in the ranks and all they do is question and complain or whatever, like maybe there's some role at your firm that actually can be productive, but more times than not, the person that is positive and excited and actually, kind of always sees the glass is half full, that type of person is going to be a better leader almost always. We need hope, right? And we need to believe in people in the organization. So if you can figure out how to come across as somebody that is just excited to be there, like super passionate, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you smile in different meetings, and the way that you communicate in text, but the smile comes through, whatever it might be. How do you get that like positive mentality across? Because there are all kinds of statistics of, who you surround yourself with kind of becomes who you are. Like you adapt to your surroundings. So if you're at the top and you're negative, holy cow, like what do you think is going to trickle down? And then that's going to trickle down, and your culture of your organization can be completely shot. Like part of being a good leader is obviously having a good culture. So if you go back to like how do you radiate and love what you do, go evaluate yourself. I mean, if you had a mirror in your office and you looked at your ability to communicate on the phone with somebody, if you're talking on the phone, are you smiling? I've heard statistics that the person on the other side can hear the smile. I always thought that was kind of an interesting saying, but they basically, if you're smiling, your happiness comes through even on a phone call. So now imagine what that's like when you're in the room. There are all kinds of studies, and we've talked about body language. I think I've covered it a little bit in other ways with how to communicate with clients and other things, but body language is super important too, and how to radiate what you do. And so show up for work, be ready. And not everyone's going to have the best day all the time. You can be human and have something that upsets you. But sometimes letting every emotion you have spill out and have that all be visual is not the right thing to do, right? There's a time and a place that negative energy and all that stuff can be shared. Maybe as a motivational tool or something, but the reality is if you carry yourself that way all the time, people aren't going to want to follow you. They're going to be kind of sick of it over time. So think about how you can radiate the love you have for what you do and be better at it. I hope that is something that comes naturally to you. If it doesn't, get some advice and find out what you could do better. Number 10 on how to be a great leader is to be truthful. And I almost think this probably should be higher up on the list. The second that you are dishonest or perceived as someone that you can't trust, leadership is just wiped out, right? Like no one's going to want to follow somebody that they can't trust. And, I think that is part of the problem that we have with politics and other different things, right? Some of those professions, people, which naturally should be leaders, right? But people start to not trust politicians, right? So leadership starts to erode. I think being able to be truthful, being able to share the hard news, even when it's not the right thing, you don't always have to spin it. There are times where honesty means more than trying to have everybody have that warm, fuzzy feeling. Being truthful, being honest is something that I would want to follow somebody that has that quality. As soon as I have my little radar or my little sniff alert there's some BS going around, I kind of distance myself from that person. So how can you be more truthful? There's all kinds of ways to be transparent, to be honest, to admit you make mistakes. I think sometimes a mistake can actually demonstrate that you are an honest person and actually make you seen as a better person, because everybody makes mistakes, right? From a truthful standpoint, go in every day and try not to react on the spot. You don't always have to answer things right away. I think the longer you let something drag out, the more question of your honesty, and is there a cover-up or something like that. So try to be truthful on the spot, but sometimes you got to wait a little and think through how to word things, etc. But you know, sometimes, not to pick on politicians again, but they can get asked a question and completely not answer the question, right? They can go off 15 minutes on a question and never even come close to answering the question. That creates dishonesty, right? Or it creates that feeling of dishonesty. So think about what you can do to be more truthful, to be more transparent, let people know the good news and the bad news. It's okay to have a bedside manner if it's really bad, and you slowly ease people into it. There's a strategy there. But the reality is you just want to be as direct and as truthful as you can be. One way to be a great leader is to live the brand. And I've gone into core values, and we'll talk more about marketing and value propositions and who you are. For Byrnes Consulting, part of my core values is helping in the community. That might be part of yours too. It's a pretty common one. Do you actually do it? Like, are you seen making the world a better place if that's part of what your core value is? And how does that get disseminated within your organization? Do people see you kind of that leadership by example? But like, how do you be a leader for your brand? There are certain great examples of people becoming the brand, right? They become the figure of the brand. And I'm not saying you have to do that, whether you're a spokesperson or just somebody that is so colorful, everyone just kind of wants to follow. But you know, if you think about the messaging of who you are and how you can align with your brand personally and professionally, that is just a wonderful way to be a leader, right? Like, if you want to lead your company and you don't believe in your brand, or you don't live the way that your brand is being communicated, there's a disconnect, right? And people will know that. So figure out, go back to the business planning 101 stuff we did. What's your core values? How do you differentiate yourself? And think about then, how do you live that? How do you demonstrate that within the organization? From a leadership branding kind of tie-in, go look outside your industry. Watch commercials and say, hey, what is that person saying on the commercial that's the figure, the founder of a fast food chain, or the person that's a spokesperson for some leisure, like hotel or whatever it might be? Like, how do they connect with the brand, and how do they get that across? If you're going to be the leader for a long time and the brand isn't aligned with you, maybe it's not necessarily that you have to change. Maybe it's the brand that needs to be tweaked a little bit. Sometimes brands are created in a vacuum by people in a marketing office that are kind of in a silo, and they're disconnected, and they kind of just do things based on their analysis or based on their experience. But as a leader, you really need to be involved in that stuff. I see too many times that the branding and the messaging stuff just doesn't connect with actually the DNA of an organization. So how can you figure out how to take that brand, live it, breathe it, and be a perfect representative for it? Number 12 is take risks. And I got to be careful with this one, but change is constant. We all know that, right? So if you do the same thing all the time, you're not going to be a great leader. Like at some point, you need to change something to be seen as a leader. Like you have to do something a little bit different, a little bit better, and that takes risks. Like you have to get out of your comfort zone. I talk about AI a lot. AI is going to revolutionize a lot of things. Are you taking a risk to take advantage of that? What could you do to position yourself to do limited risks? Have maybe ways to do pilot programs, maybe some ways to just stay ahead of the curve a little bit to see that, yes, there's a real opportunity there. We just dipped our toes in the water and it really worked. The water felt great. We're diving in. So you don't always have to risk the whole company. That goes back to the earlier leadership skill of being a problem solver. I think some of that analysis and decision making overlaps with this, and when do you take risks and when do you not? There's a whole science to it. I could do probably a whole another hour on this, but there's also kind of that gut feeling. And so you have to balance that a little bit, right? You have to make decisions based on some facts, but sometimes change happens and you sense that it's happening, and you just quickly get this little idea in your head, and you need to take a risk to have that idea flourish. Otherwise, it's never going to go anywhere. Please just remember, if you do the same thing the same way every single time, you eventually fall behind. Because we're all evolving, businesses, people, everything. So figure out your way to take risks to be more successful. Number 14, to be a leader and be successful at it is to have resources. Before I gave the George Washington example, he's not successful in the Revolutionary War if he doesn't have great generals that roll up under him. And then there's a whole chain of command, right, that goes through this whole thing. Same thing with being a great leader within an organization. I've often heard speakers that are unbelievable great leaders, billionaires, etc. And a lot of times they'll say they surrounded themselves with better people than themselves. And so if you go back to figure out how to be a leader, it's not a dictatorship. Oftentimes it's a democratic setting that you have to allow all those resources to influence that leader, and so that leader can then make the right decisions. If you are going to be successful at what you do, sometimes interchanging some of these other next tier of leadership within your organization is important, right? And when do you involve them? When do you not? When do you change that over? When do you bring in new blood? When do you start to think about how to make them more successful so they can make you more successful? There's a whole bunch of things you want to be thinking about to be more successful, to have that open environment where you can utilize all those internal resources. And then I'll end with, you don't want to just have internal resources too, because within your own umbrella, sometimes you miss what's outside of that, right? So if you could figure out how to pull in resources from different angles, from different perspectives, I can tell you there are times where sometimes you just got to get out of your own way, go take a fresh look, and all of a sudden you have a better way of thinking about things. So constantly there are other people that have a different view on things than you do. So make sure you utilize those resources, because that will make you better as a leader. Number 15, in my article originally I said create your own luck, and that was the way I ended the article. I think that's important. Good leaders do create their own luck. But I think one that was missing from my original article was that a great leader is so appreciative of everything that happens. They're so thankful. Kind of goes back to that loving what they do and loving the brand and all that stuff. Being appreciative of the people that support you, the clients or customers that actually make your business successful, all the different business partners that you have and the whole ecosystem, all the people that you rely on for advice and different services, etc. All that ways of making them feel like you care about them and you appreciate them, that makes you a better leader, because those people want to be connected with you. They're going to want to keep supporting you and maybe even be motivated to do even more for you, especially your own associates. You know, if you take some time to just thank them, handwritten thank you, monetary gift, physical gift, whatever it might be, that's kind of stuff they're like, wow, I'm noticed. I didn't know that person even knew my name. Like, that types of little gestures can make a huge, huge difference. Don't have to give gifts. Just sometimes telling people that you appreciate them, that you recognize what they did. I'll keep using the baseball analogy. I give away game balls at the end, and some coaches don't do that stuff. I literally will go to a party at someone's house, and as a baseball coach, young kids like pull my arm. You got to go in my room. Like, whoa, I'm not going up there without your parents knowing, whatever. So they'll say, yeah, go ahead. He wants to show you something. And you go up, and there's the game ball from 5 years ago on his bureau, and he's so proud of it, right? And to him, I look like a good coach or a good leader, right? And that 5 years ago, or whatever that time frame ago, just that one gesture of recognizing that they did something great helped our relationship and helped me be seen as a leader. So baseball, all right, forget about that. Going back to now, how do you do it as a business owner? I would spend at least an hour a week in just thanking people, and figure out what that looks like, and create like an appreciation campaign that actually is on your calendar, and that you spend time within your organization to do the right things. It might actually be right now going online and finding 1,000 thank you notes, or creating your own and having your marketing department create it and just write out thank you notes. Or it might be using a tool like personalized video emails and bam, sending out a message every week to certain people. I think you'll be seen as someone everybody wants to follow, and they'll really appreciate you. I've given you 15 ways to be a great leader. I'm sure there's another 150, if not 100,000. But I hope you like these little nuggets on how to be a leader, or how to be a better leader, and I hope they improve your success. This is Mike Byrnes. It's been another episode of Business Best. Thanks for watching.